Which college? Learn anything, anytime, anywhere education. Whichcollege.co.
Aromagees Botanica, a metaphysical store for mind, body, and spirit. Oils, herbs, candles, crystals, teas, handmade soaps, tarot cards, everything you need on your magical journey. Daily psychic and tarot readings, classes, witchcraft, pagan, and hoodoo supplies, most of it made in-house. Try our free dress your own candle station. From spiritual gifts to ritual supplies to religious books, we have the widest selection of metaphysical products in all of Tennessee since 1999. It is our goal to inspire everyone to explore their spirituality in their own way by offering information and products in a nurturing multicultural environment. Open 7 days a week. 223 Donaldson Pike, Nashville, Tennessee, or visit us online at aromagees.com.
Hi, this is Marianne Kay from My Mystic Gems, and I create magical items for everyday life. My handcrafted items include wire-wrapped crystals and gemstones, beautiful bullets, which is part of my Peace project, steampunk jewelry and cosplay accessories, and retro and vintage items. I can do custom designs for birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, weddings, and costume affairs. Please visit my website at mymysticgems.com and also my Etsy website at mymysticgems.etsy.com.
Oh, fire, fire, oh, fire, call fire department. Oh, wait, never mind. Fluffy says that it's he's smudging the house. Yep, smudging the house. He's been stressing how important it is to indulge in psychic hygiene. Yep. Move that energy. Well, okay. I'm going to go over here and chew on Flippy's foot. I'm going to go smudge the foot so it smells better. Get rid of all that bad juju. You don't want his other foot to fall off. Remember, look us up on With the Fluff. Love ya. Bye. Ow.
Thank you for tuning in to Pagan World TV. Welcome to the Gayle Tracey Mull Show with Gayle Tracey Mull. Gayle is a catalyst for change. She can help you create the life that you dream of living. Gayle walks the path of the wounded healer. She is a psychic reader and life coach, as well as a Reiki master in 2 traditions. She has a long and varied background in the mystical, the magical, and the metaphysical. Please welcome your host, Gayle Tracey Mull.
Hello, this is the Gayle Tracey Mull Show. I'm Gayle Tracey Mull, and tonight our guest is the Reverend Sir Edward Hubbard Correll. He is the retired first elder and retired first director of the Correllian Church. Yeah, we'll call it Correllian tradition. Excuse me, we don't call it church. The first director is a position that was created whenever he came there. And he has, oh my God, the bio this man has. He is also the first pagan volunteer for the Second Parliament of the World's Religions, serving for several years in the Parliament offices in Chicago in preparation for the event and acting as the stage manager during the Parliament. Sir Ed has attended all subsequent parliaments of the world's religions, representing the Correllian tradition and on occasion the Fellowship of Isis. Sir Ed created the Pagan Interfaith Embassy and led the Chicago Pagan Leadership Conferences beginning in 1994. He has an extensive background in magazines and radio, publishing, Psychic Chicago, The Round Table, Telepathic Media, and he created the Daily Spell in 1998, which offered Correllian clergy lessons online. The Daily Spell would later give birth to the Witch School, while contributing first as the Daily Spell magazine and later as the Daily Spell social site. The list goes on of all of the things that you have done. It is just incredible. And I mean, I could sit here and I could tell you all of these things, but instead, why don't we meet this man who is known also, and not just as Sir Ed, but as Ed the Pagan. That was your first incarnations. And currently, you're serving as the director of Pagan World TV? Did I get the title right?
Chief Information Officer. Yes, I'm a vision officer. I'm the guy who's leading the project management.
Okay. So a life well lived.
I think so. I've been enjoying it. I'm just back in Jacksonville today, my home away from the road. So I'm very grateful.
Jacksonville where? Jacksonville,
Florida.
That's weird. I live very near Jacksonville, Texas.
Okay.
And I go to search for things, and I'll put in Jacksonville, and it wants to come up Jacksonville, Florida. Because that's the one most people know.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm getting back off the road. So I've been enjoy life. I very much enjoy life. So.
Yeah. Well, every time I talk to you, you're going to a festival somewhere. You're going to coming back.
Yeah. Yesterday when we were talking about doing the test, I was in the middle of brushwood in the middle of a field. So I am. I like to talk to people, but I also spend a lot of time online too. That's a big aspect of what I do, is I'm both online as well as in the physicality.
Well, you have been out and promoting your new project, which is Pagan World TV, I understand.
It is.
This is brainchild.
It's the part of the larger Witchful project. Witchful is one of my early successes into the world of the of media and things like that. Now, Pagan World TV and the Pagan World project in general is about getting us to the next level, to getting us in having an impact to the cultural world. And the way that is done now is through television. And we are seeing the television industries and how it works crack up a little bit. And that gives real opportunity for someone some of the smaller players, like the old UFHF channels in the early days, to kind of sneak in there and get some programming, especially niche programming.
You know, I think of Pagan World TV. To me, it sort of compares to PBS.
We're using that, and we've been using that in public access television too. It is. It's starting to be the testing of it. We're right now. So if people don't know, you can go to Pagan World, the page, and you can see it on the front page, and it's on Roku. So that's one of the fastest growing apps in the world right now. They're actually building it into televisions. I was so shocked when I heard that. And we're going to get to other sort of Amazon Fire. And the idea is that we're going to present all sorts of programming, programming like this, programming all kinds. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yes, I noticed my old TV doesn't have the Roku app on it, but the new one I've got says Roku. So I'm really getting excited about being able to go and watch and see all of the different things, because this is a big step in moving forward with something that has been somewhat marginalized before, correct?
Yes. So I've been, so it's always hard for me to always talk about myself, but I've been on the media game since 1991. And that's been, and the way I had to buy my own radio show called Brokered Radio, WONX, AM 1560 at the end of your dial. It's like in Chicago radio, and I bought that at $75 an hour. Today, podcasts are pennies, comparatively, but I bought that to do Psychic Chicago Radio to be able to have my own message. And I learned very early on, the only way to really get the press we need is to create it ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I live in a place where, for instance, advertising anything that is considered occult, okay? I mean, they will block you.
Oh, sure.
There are places that you can advertise. I've had people lose their services to take payments.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of little time bombs out there for the occult practitioner, which is the word they tend to use. But it's witchcraft and Wicca. I mean, it's a larger paganism, larger aspect of it. But they like to use the word occult because people don't realize a lot of laws in the early century of the 19th century were passed against occult materials. It was considered obscene. And people go, and we can go ahead and say, oh, yeah, so what? That was a long time ago. But the way laws, as we just learned recently, is set up on a series of precedences. And until we clear those out of the way, they're used again and again against us. And the number one is fraud. Occult businesses are inherently fraudulent by most definitions. And so they can give us no access to credit cards, to other means, financial tools. And it was an oppression tool, but it's still very effective.
So do you think that is changing? I mean, is that one of the things that you think Pagan World TV will help change?
The Pagan World Project in general, yes. Actually, I think we're changing because we're getting to be a larger community. We have more finances behind us. We're getting healthier. I mean, the community compared to where I was as a kid is way healthier, way stronger, way more capable of things than people realize. And now it is so capable that I can even look at launching and being accepted by Roku. Roku had to prove this. I would be surprised if they didn't. 20 years ago, I would have been in doubt.
Oh, yeah. 20 years ago, Roku wouldn't have even considered doing a project like Pagan World TV.
Right, but we've gotten through. But I have the earlier project of Magic TV, which was in 2005. When we really began our videos was back in November 11th, 2005, with the first episode of what was a very short-lived term, Pagan Nightly News. And we did that independently. And then February 2006, we joined as Magic TV. We joined YouTube. We have millions and millions of views on YouTube.
And that's the things that you have been rebroadcasting right now as you're looking for new talent.
We did, and just recently, the last one for last week, and we're going to do it, was Pagan Unity Festival, new ones up. And if you go to this channel right now, we have Tuatha Dea on demand. We also have Byron Ballard, two of her great statements, one about Roe versus Wade and the other one about not moving back, as video on demand right now.
Wow. So video on demand, are they paying for video on demand?
No, it's a part of the service.
Okay. That, why do you think that now is the time? I mean, why are we growing now as a community?
Connection. We spent a long time we took a long time. This is not accidental. This is intentional. So we've gone through Leland and Gardner, who began to publish, and during downtime, we had the publishers. That early area where Shiva and Charles Wachowski led to publishers. And then we had the magazines, the Oberon Zells and Miss Niven and all of them, who began producing the magazines. So we've always used the number one tool available to us, books, then magazines. Obviously, radio is mine next. That's where I really stepped in, and then more magazines. But when the internet came,
YouTube.
No, before YouTube for me, it was one thing called One List. And I had 5 covens we were working with in the Correllian tradition in 1997, 1998. And we got a bunch of names. And in the Daily Spell, we began to send those lessons we were writing up, turning them from more scattered oral tradition into a more physical tradition, right? So you do that. And what happened, we didn't close it. And before we knew it, we had over 2,000 people within months into our little One List group, which became Yahoo groups.
I remember Yahoo groups. I do. Yeah.
So we started out when it was One List, then it became e-groups, and then Yahoo bought them out. And the Daily Spell was a part of that system. And the Daily Spell was a great thing, and we could put out the lessons, and we soon had thousands of people wanting to take lessons. And so for us, and then the Witch School came in, which is now a global community. So the internet has allowed all of us to communicate almost telepathically, intellectually, spiritually, mind to mind, in a way that we have never had the opportunity. And phones are already starting to do that. So we've taken out, since we started this 70, 80, 90, 100 years ago, we've been wanting to communicate with the public. So this is just the latest tier, the latest moment where we can.
Absolutely. And, I think one of the things that I tell everybody whenever they're talking about paganism, the craft, whatever you want to call this that we're doing, because, there's many different names, it's always been a tradition that was better if it was oral. It wasn't necessarily made to be a written tradition, and it's made to be ever living, ever evolving, ever growing. And that's what you're detailing.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've become a library tradition now. The great Faye Urbanowitz said, we don't have holy books, we have holy libraries. So we've become very much in the late 20th century. Pagans all across the board became much more library oriented. Some we picked up from more of the magicians and the alchemists, right? Because the books were available. And today, most people don't realize a book a day on the occult subjects that we love is coming out somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. And, I am one of those librarian people. And I have actually, I gave out a lot of my books here a while back, trying to downsize and condense. And now I think the younger people, it's about video. It's about watching something.
So I have a young person by the name of Dave. I've known him for a couple of years now. When he first came up to me, he said, I asked him, I said, what do you do for books? He said, I have a whole library. He goes, really? Yeah, I can look up any spell I want to. I can look up anything I want. Right? And then he showed me his thing and handed me his tablet. He had 900 books. Now, last time I saw it was 1,500. And he could put anything in there, any name, anything else, and get that database out.
I have one of those people in my life, and she's just like, it's just all out there. You can get the, and she's voracious in reading it. Yes.
And so we're there in the greatest, simplest age. I tell people, we are seeing cyberspace is making all of our dreams come true. So what is that but the Akashic Records? What, you see what I'm saying? Manifest.
If you think about it, yes. And for people out there who don't know what the Akashic Records is, it's and I forget the terminology, but basically it's the record of all of your past lives. You go and you're able to look, and people do it in journey work, meditation. They go and they look for the record of their life. But if you think about the internet and everything else, yeah, because you're able to look up all of that information from the past.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about cutting space between the worlds. What are we doing right now? We're cutting a space between the worlds to have a conversation by using intelligent electricity. Huh?
Absolutely. And, I love having these conversations with people. And I try and clarify it for the people who are out there that Akashic Records, they're out there Googling, what is that? But you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
And I just hadn't thought of it in that particular way. But absolutely, that's what we're creating.
And so I joke, and I mean it both at the same time. It says, welcome to my reality show, Ed the Pagan reality show. And I tell people, what do you mean by that? It says, well, if you take this basic premise that God's watching me, I want to get his attention and do a good job for that. If angels are watching me, if spirits are watching me, right, the future's watching me, then I better have a good show. I want to get more attention than most. But we're living in an attention economy. And that's where people don't understand. Pagan World is now moving into the next comic. Just as Witch School answered for hundreds of thousands of people to cry for basic information and want to be clergy, we've graduated more than 4,000 legal clergy worldwide, not just the United States, but in other countries, all through the power of the internet, all through the power of teaching and connecting.
How many people has Witch School graduated, did you say?
Over 4,000 legal clergy. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And many more have attended, I'm sure, that haven't necessarily.
About 300,000 people. About 300,000.
Wow. So, and you got to understand, not everybody is made to go on and be clergy, just like not everybody is made to go on and be a Reiki master. I mean, it's a hard job, people. If you think that this path is easy, I'm going to tell people this is not the easy breezy thing. This is about continuing to learn your whole life. Am I not correct?
Yeah. And I tell people right now, so the last part of this is that we're the most filmed generation. We're going to be the alpha generation for the civilization that's coming. Because right now, we may not think of it, but in 50 years, somebody's going to be sitting in their version of a classroom, which might be a VR room, it might be a real classroom. It depends on what people's tastes go, right? And they're going to be studying these very videos, to talk about us in a history class. Huh?
Oh, just like we look at some of the old movies about what it was going to be like in 2022, and they had the flying cars, and that's what they thought that the future was going to be like. And some of it we have materialized quite well. But it is an ever-growing, ever-evolving, ever-changing tradition. And I think right now, I see it as a spiritual movement. I wouldn't say it's just a pagan movement or a craft movement or anything. I think people are searching for a different way to look at spirituality. You be with me?
I agree with you. I agree with you. It's a movement. Hmm? And it's not simply pagan or it's simply spiritual. It's actually
No.
becoming, it is just spiritual because we're seeing it all over the world. What we are seeing is a movement towards finding another order of life. The towers are coming down. The patriarchy. Byron Ballard speaks about this a lot, about tower time, and how we have these structures of towers, and they're coming down, they're collapsing. And I do feel like our movement is about finding new systems that doesn't put another dictator at the top, another fascist on top. We're looking at putting circles on the ground. I think that's why I go to festivals. So I'm looking at these temporary sustainable communities and seeing how can we create more of that.
I agree with that. And it's about individuality and finding what works for you. And I think that people during the pandemic, I think the pandemic hastened all of it because people had time to stop and look at their life and say, whoa, wait a minute. What have I been doing? What do I want to do?
So I always joke about the early days, the first 2 months of the pandemic when they really locked us down. I often call it the great nap. People got to sleep for the first time. I mean, really sleep. You know, like we did in the winters before. I mean, we did a lot of work in the winters, but we slept like great. You know, we had, and we saw that. And so I think that disrupted everything. Everybody started to get a lot more energy. People started to take care of themselves. People, and then all of this internet stuff got to be heightened. I mean, I was a Zoom user long before Zoom got popular. The broadcasting.
Zoom exploded during the pandemic.
Right. And today we use it. Skype grew. All of those systems grew. And so when we get to Pagan World, out of the pandemic, the price and the quality of getting out to the internet world, being able to create this was greatly heightened. I went into, this is going to take, from the time that I started this project to the time we're going to be on the air with a full-time schedule on September 4th, right, is going to be 4 months.
Wow.
So from
and I think that's like lightning fast to grow a station, which I understand it's going to be a learning curve. I mean, you start with something and then you're going to have to grow into something else and probably feel like you're running to catch up.
Luckily, wisdom has allowed me to set a good schedule. So we're doing a better job of it. We're unloading volunteers at a pretty steady base. So I've done, don't get me wrong, I've done that. Pagan Tonight Radio was that story. We started it and we were running for over a year before we got ourselves into a good groove. That was when we were doing 7 days. We did for a decade. I did 7 days a week radio. Not myself personally, but ran the station that did it. And had station managers, wonderful people. So I love group projects. If you've ever seen my projects, the thing that you'll always notice is I'm the architect and then I shove other people on stage. I really like doing that. And now that's what I'm doing again. I want people to know each other. And that's important. I think once we know each other a little better, we have a little less anger, a little less competition, a little less everything. And then we can find more ways to cooperate.
Well, the thing of it is, and I tell people all of this all the time, how you start and keep a middle ground is it's mutual politeness and respect, and it's being able to have a conversation. And I think that that's what you are pushing some of these alternative groups to do, is you're giving them a place to have a conversation and to learn about each other, so it can be like, oh no, we're on one page. I'm not exactly like them, but I understand where they're coming from.
And also, I think can I say I'm an awe and wonder junkie. I love awe. I'm a wonder junkie in that. I love to see things I've never seen before. I like the sensation of that, the feeling of it, all of that. I really do enjoy that. and I seek it out. It's one of the reasons I go to festivals. You know, the big bonfires, seeing the Milky Way. I have not seen the Milky Way in a long time. And so these festival grounds, it's finally at Brushwood. I saw the Milky Way first time probably in a long time. And so I love this sense of awe and wonder. I think the ways we cultivate that, I think that then we see our materialism kind of strip away a little bit. We're able to live with a little bit less. We're able to, kind of look at that when we are looking at experiences being the core of our reality and not what we own. That's the hardest shift we're making.
I agree with you. I think that is the shift that we're making. And I think particularly in North America, for a long time, Americans have lived to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with COVID, they all of a sudden understood, no, I want to work to live. Instead of living to work, they're working to live. And they're deciding that they don't have to do some of the things that they did before just because it makes a dollar. They're being picky about it.
So they were breaking the actions that we learned in the Depression. In the Depression, we taught us that if you don't work for the factories, if you're not working for the system, you're going to starve. And there's no way for you to live out of the system, outside the system. You might be a small business owner, you might be one of those things, but that's for people who can't really work in the factories and work the same way as we do. The small business owner were the immigrants and other people who just couldn't make it in the big factories and the big business. And this became America. And so we continue to do that. I still see that. And then I think COVID, we're starting to see that break up with the younger generation. The Xers, of course, were slackers, right? Because we didn't want to do that. We became all the clerks in the world. And now with COVID, that broke up. That trance we were in since the Depression really broke up.
And, my metaphysical friends and I have identified this pattern a long time ago of breaking generational healing, breaking generational curses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the child of Depression era children. And it's something, your programming is set for this very restricted mode. You must save everything. You must do all of these things. And COVID just busted that wide open, didn't it?
It did. It gave us, I always talk about the great nap. But once we got out of that, people, when they got really bored, they started to create things. And we saw people doing shows. In the pagan world and in the spiritual world, and almost every world you saw education take a huge step forward. We did hybrid festivals. We did all sorts of things utilizing this electronic telepathy we've got. I call it electronic telepathy. This is wormholes. This is the magic mirror of the fairy tales, that we get to talk to each other. The idea of images over long distance, the George Jetson world of, we do everything by television. And that reality went from being just kind of like out there to like really condensed to where we are right now, to this very conversation.
I truly, honestly believe that. And I think it was different according to what part of the country you were in, sort of how that fell out. And I think in some parts of the country, it was much more intense than in others. Mm-hmm. I have seen a lot of movement within our country since then. Like, there are so many people moving to Texas. Oh my God. They're coming from all over the country, all over the world.
Right. Well, they're getting ready for Texas to be an independent country. That's what it is. It is that preparation for what's coming next, which is.
I agree that could actually happen in our lifetime. And used to hear people would tell you, oh, that's never going to happen. And now you talk to the average person on the street and they're like, it could happen.
Yeah.
Well,
we didn't believe it in the Ottoman Empire at the beginning of World War II. They were so powerful they could never be broken up. Today, they're the Middle East, lots of different countries. Eastern European. The term balkanization became part of the word, that sort of thing. The Soviet Union broke up. England, we just saw the British Empire break up. So this idea of the United States as a coherent nation, which is, large and big, as a remaining coherent nation, that's only if we continue to agree so. And more and more, we don't want to agree to that sort of centralized identity. But everybody is getting angry at that centralized identity, regardless if you're right or left. We're losing that central identity.
And I think we're even getting tired of that on a statewide agenda. One of my friends who's an astrologer said this age of Aquarius, it's about corruption falling. That's one of the things, and it's about technologies. And she said there's a certain degree of barbarism, but there's also places that are filled with light and places that advance the world. And there's great advancements in civilizations whenever you're in an age of air and thinking.
Well, we talk about generational healing. When we're talking about, so we've never lived such a, people complain, so the United States has never been both so psychologically disturbed overall, with people having all sorts of pressures and tensions and aberrations of thought due to the environment that we're not used to. We call it mental illness, we call it diseases, but these are all because we don't know how to handle the environment we're in.
One of the things, and that is what people that are light workers, if you will, to use a term.
I like that term.
I like that term. But we've trained all of these years to be able to help people during this time. And, I've had to work on my own generational healing, but that allows me to help others. And one of the things that I find really helpful for that is EFT and tapping. There is meditation, soul retrieval work, Reiki. There's so many different ways to go about healing that generational trauma.
There is. There is a lot of it, and ancestor worship is on the rise. Not necessarily, not just pagan one, but just in general. The idea of building altars to your ancestors.
Well, I think that really comes from, and I think the search for spirituality, or a different type of spirituality than you have previously experienced, comes from the fact that so many people have lost somebody. Used to, in our lifetimes, we didn't lose somebody until we were much older, because people are fairly healthy and everything. And now I meet people that they've lost 2, 3, 4 people that are very important to them because of the pandemic.
Right. So if you ever go in a graveyard before the 50s, that's where much more frequent, especially of children, of other situations, from diseases, from the things we couldn't immunize. If you really go in there, and then we see the age of modern medicine, and it drops fast and quick. We got a hold of it, sanitation, all of it. So from World War II on, the Depression on, we really haven't had to deal with it in the way that was common and normal for most of the human experience. That was, right? So
I agree with you. And so now, as this pandemic hit and people started to lose people in their life, and to look around and go, oh my God, that could happen to me. And they realized that they didn't understand what they believed in. It was a spirituality. And
I think that process, and now as we're getting back together, is starting to continue and unfold. I don't think the changes are even. I think the fuse was lit. We had the explosion in the idea of COVID, and as we're coming out of it, I think that people are seeing that the way we associate with each other, the way we think, has been cleared out, and we can build new structures. And that's what I'm trying to do now with the Pagan World Project, is to see if we can get some new structures in place as we come out. Can I start meeting with people? Can I interview people? Can I talk with people? And can we have a more common experience? Now that the explosion has cleared some of the way to allow somebody like us, anyone who's got these sort of niche markets to come in, just like we did with YouTube many years ago, just like we did with the Witch School project, with the Pegasus Night project. We were always ahead of the scale. This time, can we build a more common experience? And one for the Z generation. They're very TV oriented. But so are the Xers too.
Yeah. In like we were talking 20 years ago, paganism, spirituality, it was very marginalized. It was the fringes. And it was like, oh, you're those strange woo-woo people. What we're seeing is it's coming back to the middle. And I think people are searching for a middle ground. They're searching for common ground with other people.
And I agree with you. So when we talk about generational healing, we're also looking at generational blessings. I mean, are we now going to be able to carry forward a blessing to our children, to our grandchildren? Are these campgrounds that we're building and buying for people to have a green place to go to, is that going to be a blessing onto our children? So we're now in the generation of not only healing, but looking at what is generational wealth. And people go, what do you mean by wealth? I mean, like gold and things like this? Goes, oh yeah, the most precious thing in the world. Seeds and soil. And these are things, as a generation. Can we preserve those things? Can we preserve the things that will be important to us?
Well, wealth and health, there's a reason that they sound similar.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about having a healthy way of looking at your life. That is true wealth. It being able to live and grow and breathe and do the things that you want to do and having the freedom to do them. And, the people used to talk about abundance magic, wanting all of this stuff. I am not per se a believer in abundance magic. I'm a believer in prosperity magic. Things come, they go, there's a cycle.
I agree. I mean, I think that I believe time is circular, but our processes are linear. And now we're heading into an exponential world. We tend to think local and linear. That's what we're trying to do. Who's in our tribe? What's in our neighborhoods? Who are the threats around us? Who are the people that are going to support us? And that's very local. What's happened now is that we've now turned that exponential. They don't have to be here with us. They can be anywhere in the country and still be a supporter of us. We can have our large tribe. Right.
Yeah. And so it's the metaphysical people have talked about the shift and, going into 5D thinking and the world shifting.
Right.
And I personally believe that our world is shifting every day. I mean, if you realize that everything is energy, everything is vibrational.
So at some level, I agree. So I'm a Gaiist, and Lovelock passed away today on his 103rd birthday. The gentleman who did the just today, who did the Gaia hypothesis. So we're going to hear a lot about Gaia hypothesis and the Gaia theory.
Today?
James Lovelock, the theorist who put out at 103 years old. He died on his 103rd birthday. I mean, that's life. And he put out the idea that Gaia is one organism that kind of popularized in the 60s and the 70s. So,
yes. So I agree with you. I agree that we live on one planet and that planet is alive and is a living, breathing organism that we're all part of. And that's sort of what our belief system is based on. And we are wrapping up things here with Mr. Ed Hubbard, who is the visionary behind Pagan World TV. And I think he has a little bit of a message for all of you about how you can help with that.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So on Pagan World, if you go to paganworld.co or in any number of derivatives, come up there. We have a board for volunteers, and not just for volunteers for helping us. If you ever wanted to learn how to edit, if you want to make films, if you're creative, if you've got content, talk to us. We have a great team: Mary Hawk, Chad Blackman, Neil Goodman. We have Liz out on the coast, who's actually making a science fiction show.
Cool.
Yes, they've wanted to. So this is a great chance for you to kind of show your creativity. We're having to fill up, and the idea of doing many hours, and instead of, and any way you can. So if you want to help other people make content, if you ever want to learn how to help our community, that's terrific. But even beyond that, we also have activist sports to help you connect with communities. There are a lot of people out there who need help, like seed savers, like, we were talking off between the thing about foster parenting. There's a lot of things we can do as a community that can really help ourselves. But do something. But if you're looking for something and figure out a way to do it, we have a great volunteer board. We have great volunteers.
Yeah. I think in the past, Christianity had a great level of volunteerism, and it still does. But I do not think that the general population out there realizes that a lot of people in the pagan community, they volunteer for a lot of stuff.
They do. And I think that's what I'm hoping that Pagan World fills in, is we can tell some of these stories. The problem is we have no one to tell the stories to, because we're so siloed and so fractured. And while we're getting better and better with the internet, we still are really siloed. We're really hard to communicate. And if you don't know what you're looking for, it's really hard to find groups and people to be a part of. So I think that's still a big fraction. And I'm hoping that we can kind of net ourselves into a better community.
That is what Mary Hawk, she was on last week, explained to me, that paganworld.co is about finding people in your area, among other things. I mean, that's not what it's for, but it gives you a place to find local people in your area so that you don't have to feel so alone.
So it's one of the things I learned a little while ago, and Mary is executing beautifully. I'm so grateful to have her leading the team on this. Is the idea of hyperlocalization. That this idea of being local is really important, because in a disaster, no matter how much I'd love to help everybody, I'm just in Jacksonville and I can do a little bit, but really I need to depend on my next door neighbor. You need to depend on your next door neighbor. What's in your neighborhood to survive that situation?
And I want people out there to realize, because like I said, they've thought of people that are pagan as being sort of out there. They're these strange people that live off in the woods, and they're not my next door neighbor. And nothing is actually further from the truth. I mean, they're teachers, they're doctors, they're nurses, they're prison guards, they're the cashier at your store. They're just normal people.
If the numbers are correct, if 100 people, 3 of them are probably pagan.
So 3% of the population is what you're guesstimating.
Where we're heading to. We're real close to it if we're not. Mm-hmm. And it depends. We have concentrations in an area where we see a lot of people. Other areas we see nobody at all. But overall, the numbers are appearing to be about 3 to 4, about 3 million people, in particular in the pagan Wiccan path. Mm-hmm. Not including the other groupings, the spiritual but not religious, not nuns. I'm talking about dedicated to that cause. And then we have 21, 22% that are out there in America that are just agnostic. They're just looking for something. They often call them the unchurched. They call them a lot of things. So
if you figure that the agnostics, as they gradually say things like Pagan World TV, and they sort of, I say that they're already paganish,
mm-hmm.
and they just don't know that that's what they are. We actually did a show here a few weeks ago on attempting to define paganism, which it is strictly an attempt because that's a big word that covers a lot of ground.
Mm-hmm. So, T-Thorn Coyle out on the West Coast said something very important a while ago that I thought was very important. And she said, "We've won the culture war. We just don't realize it."
I love it. And, and I love the work that you were talking about being a gayist, if I've said it correctly. That Texas accent gets in the way. But the world is one being, and we're all part of one being.
Essentially, yeah. If you look at far enough in space, we look like a water drop. We look like a microbe.
Yeah.
So, so we are just one entity, and I think that's important.
Yes. And to realize that we're all connected, and I think that the pandemic did that for us. We realized that we are all connected and all part of one world. And I think North America still does not completely realize that. I think the rest of the world does.
I think they do too. And that's at the core of Pagan World. Can we just have a place where we can all communicate and share our best creative selves?
Yes.
And thank you for having me.
Oh, it has been wonderful. You and I have much to talk about. We could do many more shows. But know that paganworld.co, the link should be in the comment section. I know my engineer has got it. There's also a link tree for me if you have any questions about this later on. And please go and look up paganworld.co. Contact Mr. Hubbard. Mary Hawk was perfectly lovely. I'm sure any of the people there. And get involved. That's the message. Get involved. Yeah.
Yep.
So, thank all of you for watching tonight. Thank you for being here, Ed. The Gayle Tracey Mull Show. I'm Gayle Tracey Mull.
Thank you for watching the Gayle Tracey Mull Show with Gayle Tracey Mull. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a like and comment and subscribe. Tune in next time on Pagan World TV.